This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
What is this supposed to do?
Just a mild sedative to help you sleep.
I hate you.
We don't hate you. There's no need for hate now. Or love.
I love you, Matthew.
There are people that will fight you, David.
They'll stop you.
In an hour. You won't want them to.
Donald Sutherland is a San Francisco health inspector who discovers a conspiracy to replace humans with alien replicants that are exact duplicates except for one element. They are completely devoid of emotion. An Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. One of two movies we'll go in depth about this week. As we have a theme this week, we'll get into that in just a moment. I am one of your grateful co-hosts, Chris Jordan. And joining me as always, the man, the myth, the legend, the Ayatollah of pop culture, Joel Puma. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, here's the point where if I could, I would do a piercing pod person shriek, but haven't been able to pull that off yet. I keep trying.
Maybe you need a set of tweezers and a hole in your pocket or something.
Now I can do the shriek. It's painful to think about.
Well, Joel, we'll get into it here. It's award season, Grammys, Country Music Awards.
Oh, we're not talking about the Grammys.
No, we're not talking about the Grammys. But
we're not talking about Kendrick losing again.
That's a conspiracy in its own self. But, yeah, it's award season, and we're talking, of course, the one that we're concerned about is the Academy Awards, the Oscars, if you will. We're interested in the Best Picture nominees. Got some good ones this year. And there seems to be, for the most part, a lack of really big budget Hollywood for the most part in these films. Maybe with one exception. But what do you think, Joel? You wanna just run down the Best Picture nominees real quick here? We'll just rhyme them off. That's all we'll do.
It's an interesting list this year because we've got some genre pictures. We've got a lot of different styles and themes. It's a year with almost. There are a couple of typical sort of Oscar bait films or your standard kind of nominees, but it's really a film with, or really a ceremony with some interesting names. I mean, our obvious, typical Oscar nominee would be Spielberg's The Post. Which
that's our annual Tom Hanks Oscar bait film. I think there's one every year.
Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. It's covering all the bases, which is not to say anything against it. I haven't seen it. I generally like Spielberg, even when he's in his "Oh Lord, the authorities are going to save us all" sort of mode. But it's almost like kind of a cheerful throwback to a time where people thought that journalism was really sacred and actually going to save us from Nixon,
Yeah.
which we'll probably be talking about in a bit.
The post, of course, is a lot reminiscent of, you could probably compare it to like All the President's Men, quite a bit, actually.
How you think with that wiener Robert Redford in it?
Yeah. So the post is one. We've got Call Me by Your Name. Now, I want to go on record by saying that I have not seen any one of the Best Picture nominees at all. So I'm going in blind, really.
And I've only seen 2, and hopefully a third soon. In a film we might be discussing in a few weeks, Lady Bird, which is an interesting little coming of age film. First directorial picture by Greta Gerwig, who's a pretty prominent indie film mumblecore actress, but that's gotten like insane rave reviews. And it's interesting to see like that in the same field with like a more traditional pick like Darkest Hour, which is your like sort of prerequisite big actor plays a famous guy.
Yeah, that's your prerequisite biopic that we get every year, Darkest Hour, about Winston Churchill. Don't forget we had Christopher Nolan on there with Dunkirk.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot Dunkirk existed. It's Chris Nolan doing his pretty boy death fetish thing.
Yeah.
We've got Phantom Thread, which is Paul Thomas Anderson doing a sort of Hitchcockian thing. It seems like an honest-to-God challenge, so I'm curious about that one. I'm not the hugest fan of PTA, but this one seems like... of course, Daniel Day-Lewis's supposed last film. We'll see how long that lasts. But, it seems like an interesting picture. We've got 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, which
I've heard nothing but good things about this one.
There has been a little bit of blowback on it, I think partly because, there's a lot of very politically engaged films this year, which is exciting, but this seems like the one where, because it's a realistic picture, it's the one that's been sort of most subject to arguments for and against it, how realistic, how accurate it might be, whether or not it's sort of patronizing or like accurately depicting the South. I mean, it's one where eventually I'm gonna have to see it to make an opinion on. It's not one I'm really excited about.
Yeah, okay. And then of course our last nominee is Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. Now when I first saw the trailer for this, I could have swore this was going to be like a backstory about Abe from Hellboy. But apparently that's not the case.
No, I mean, it's a similar thing. Del Toro's, of course, always had an obsession with old monster movies, and this is one of the 2 I've seen. The next one we'll get to. It's sort of the subject of our show today. But Shape of Water is exceptional. I can't recommend it highly enough. And Del Toro is a bit hit or miss for me because sometimes I find he's a little too genre oriented. Like he rolls in tropes as shorthand too often for me, and I often find like he's more visually engaged than character engaged. This is an example where I feel like he's actually showing a bit of vulnerability and taking a lot of chances, and his characters are fully realized. That's partly because the cast in this is just phenomenal, and we'll probably get more into this film and its predecessors in a future show. But giving Del Toro someone like Sally Hawkins, it's a wonderful match. Like he finally has collaborators that can really bring his stuff to life.
Yeah, and there's certainly a lack of Ron Perlman in this one. But and we've saved one for last because we want to pull out one of those Oscar contenders, Best Picture nominees, out for thematic purposes, because the 2 movies we're going to talk about today kind of have something in common with the movie Get Out, which is I don't know if it's considered the favorite to win Best Picture, Joel, But it's definitely when it got released that it was nominated for Best Picture. I mean, you could hear the standing ovation around the globe, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably a bit of a dark horse, except that it's gotten many other nominations. So I mean, I would say at this point the favorite is sort of split between Shape of Water, Three Billboards, and Lady Bird. I feel like this is a year where the Academy's going to split the difference in awards, giving like, I don't know, Del Toro Best Director, Lady Bird Best Picture, and Three Billboards Best Screenplay, something along those lines. But Get Out, I mean, even secured a Best Actor nomination. Jordan Peele in his directorial debut. And of course, our listeners, I'm sure many of them have seen Key and Peele. And this is the other nominee I've seen so far, and it is, also exceptional in a totally different way than The Shape of Water. I mean, it's another film where I feel like, aside along The Shape of Water, where it does depend on genre tropes a little bit too much in this case in a sort of meta way, and it's one where I think maybe the ending was a little bit of a cop out, but it's just it is a phenomenal film. Like, the lead performance is stunning. Like, Peele's command of the camera is so assured for, like, and I'm sure he's done direction before. I don't know if he directed any skits on Key and Peele the show, but that had extraordinary production values for a sketch comedy show, and they did parodies of like big films that were really accurate, really well produced. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's built up his skills doing things like that for a while at this point. But yeah, whereas the second film we'll be talking about today is also a directorial debut. This actually feels like a much more assured, and it's also a much higher budget, but it's a much more complete film than. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So we want to talk about one of the themes. There are several themes running through Get Out, but one of the I guess the cinematic elements, so to speak, the genre of the film. We've got like a paranoia horror film with Get Out. And so we wanted to talk about a couple of movies, especially from an era where you might say that paranoia was kind of running rampant at the time. The 70s, the post-Nixon, post-Watergate era saw a lot of, especially like maybe some science fiction films, horror films come out that showed some some government distrust, some anti-government sentiment, things of that nature. And so the paranoia running rampant through genre films in that era. Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978 is one of them. Now, I mean, it's a remake of another. It's like a classic being remade into another classic, really. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original film from like the 50s, I think it was 56. But the remake from 1978. This is a paranoia horror that we want to get into. It's directed by Philip Kaufman, who we want to probably get into here just for a minute, because Kaufman, film director and screenwriter, directed. He's kind of got like a prolific background to him. If we take a look at some of his films, such as he was the screenwriter. He co-wrote The Outlaw Josie Wales, starring Clint Eastwood, from 1976. He's got story credit with George Lucas for Raiders of the Lost Ark. He wrote and directed The Right Stuff. Again, he was on board for pretty much all of the Indiana Jones films. He's got The Unbearable Lightness of Being to his credit. He co-wrote and directed Rising Sun from 1993. I believe that's a Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes film. And then he, of course, he was involved with Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I want to get that out there.
Well, I think it's mostly because he's using characters he created, so he does still get story credit.
Yeah.
Kaufman's an interesting case where he's a very, like, he's very much a throwback to, you know, sort of a very independent auteur directors who were like his films are very much for an adult audience, which means, you know, he's just non-existent in Hollywood now because no films are for an adult audience, especially the ones like supposedly made for adults, like the new 50 Shades film. but his films are extremely intelligent. So they're, you know, they're almost entirely starring like fully adult middle-aged characters. Like, you know, there's heavy eroticism. I mean,
he's he's cross genres. I mean, he's done horror, fantasy, westerns. He's done crime, inner city gangs, The Wanderers. You know, stuff like that. It's just so yeah, he's got like an eclectic filmography to his background there.
He's the kind of guy where, like, you know, I just got. We should also mention why I mentioned heavy eroticism. His Henry and June was the first NC-17 film ever.
NC-17.
I know, but he's an adult who makes films for adults, and it's almost something that. Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about like Oscar nominees, so it's not like that doesn't exist anymore. It's just so difficult to make a career out of that now. Pretty much anyone who wants to do that kind of stuff is just going to find a niche in TV or streaming TV.
Right. Yeah, and so he's the man behind the camera here for the Invasion of the Body Snatchers here. We'll break down the cast real quick because it's got a pretty good cast. You've got Donald Sutherland, of course. Everyone knows who Donald Sutherland is. His roots in Canada. We're going to talk about Canada a few times here, but Donald Sutherland is big in his...
Christmas Day.
Yeah, it is my day. It is actually Canada Day. It's July 1st, so I'll wait to... maybe we'll do like a Canucksploitation when we get down into...
Black Christmas.
Yeah. So of course, Donald Sutherland is no stranger to some horror films. One of the ones that stand out to me is from 1973. It was in Don't Look Now, which is I think a film that flies under a lot of people's radars, and he was very good in that. And
Don't Look Now always sorry to interrupt, Chris.
No problem.
Always seems to be a film where people talk about it more than they watch it, and it's a wonderful movie. I think by Criterion has a release of it. It's sort of regarded as an all-time horror classic, but it's almost sort of put on a pedestal because it's so singular. Like, they don't really do horror films like that anymore, and it doesn't really have any obvious like inspirations. Like, you know, you can the list of films inspired by Night of the Living Dead is probably longer than the Bible at this point.
Yeah, it sure is. And then, of course, on the other end of the gamut, Donald Sutherland was in Animal House, Professor Dave Jennings. So, yeah, Donald Sutherland, of course, a very prolific career, for lack of a better term, because we use prolific quite a bit on this show. I do anyway.
He's a versatile, like, interesting actor. Can play a lot of different types. I mean, he can be really weird. He can be like a straight leading man, like he is here.
Yeah, one of his all-time creepy characters I find was his arsonist from Backdraft. He was that was a real good performance for him, an underrated performance there as the creepy arsonist dude. So,
of course, being a fan of weird war, like deconstruction war films, I love him in Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah, Kelly's Heroes is a good movie. I like that whole Kelly's Heroes, Dirty Dozen, ragtag group of, World War II type action films. It's real. That was a fun movie.
The Arrow's great. Yeah, but him playing a proto-hippie tank driver in Kelly's Heroes, I mean, his early career is marked by a sort of... it's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, his early career is marked by a sort of, he was in Dirty Dozen, MASH, Kelly's Heroes, playing very sort of, odd characters. And at this point in his career, he's like a stable leading man. He's a model of the, 70s, thoughtful, sincere, liberal guy. Basically, you could probably track the boomer generation by following Donald Sutherland's career.
Yeah, and there's a lot. You see a lot of that in Invasion of the Body Snatchers with his character here also. His character being Matthew Bennell or Bennell. He's a San Francisco health inspector. He's really you see him go to work almost immediately in the film when he busts into this restaurant. He thinks he finds rat poop in some soup, and then the restaurant owner insists that it's capers.
Yeah, that's one of the scenes in here where it's almost hard to locate what the tone is a little bit. It's not in a messy way. It's just he's got the trench coat on. It seems like it's riffing on the cop shows that were huge in the 70s. And it's an argument with a restaurateur, in a clearly fancy French style restaurant, whether it's a rat turd or a caper. It seems sort of very obviously satirical, but at the same time, there's part of me that's wondering how seriously we're supposed to take this character at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, because as the film goes on, it's meant to be it's clear we're meant to take him very seriously, but this scene is so sort of awesomely absurd.
Yeah. And then later on in the film, of course, you get a sense that his character has a strong sense of, I guess, justice, whether it's social justice or just criminal justice. When the one scene we talk about Kevin McCarthy, the star of the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, running through the streets like a madman and getting run down by a car, intentionally or unintentionally. That's kind of I think it's implied that he intentionally got run down, but then following that, Sutherland's character's reaction, trying to report it to the police, just going out of his way to try to file that report with the police and not getting very far, of course. But seeing this poor guy get run down and no one's doing anything about it, you can kind of sense the outrage there.
Yeah, as the film goes on, I mean, that introduction to him is sort of ridiculous, but it's almost like using that sort of satirical comedy to go into humanize him rather than make him a very rigid type, which he might otherwise be. I mean, he's always sort of bringing up, I'm a civil servant. There's a ridiculousness to it, but as the film goes on, you realize how seriously he takes all of this, and it compels you to even though you were sort of laughing at how seriously he's taking this sort of mundane job, as he starts to get frustrated with his inability to utilize the forces he's used to having at his command to do anything about this spiraling situation. It's easy to sympathize with him.
Yeah. So we've got we've got a good performance here from Donald Sutherland, and it's kind of and I know it's the 70s, so there's almost kind of like an anti-leading man vibe to him here, because he's not like a traditionally good-looking guy, but it's the performance that really leads the way here more than anything else, that makes you believe that Donald Sutherland was right for this film.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's not traditionally good looking, but he's got very striking looks, a very like big presence, like without being like too hammy. Like he's very, when he plays straightforward, like in this, even though like some of the places where he enacts like his sense of justice are over the top, like he's very steady throughout the film, and this film, especially has like, being a spiral out of control film, having that central grounding presence in the middle. I mean, it's almost sort of like quaint, like having an authoritative guy that we can actually trust. I mean, the film sort of gets past that by having a lot of authoritative guys who we clearly can't trust.
Right. Yeah. And that's what we're gonna delve into here. We'll look at the cast just a little bit further. We've got Brooke Adams as the female lead here, as Elizabeth, who Donald obviously he likes her, but she's hooked up with gosh, what was his character's name?
Lantern Jaw.
Yeah, Art Hindle, Jeffrey Howell. He was a dentist. That's another Canadian actor, by the way, Art Hindle. So we've got quite a few Canadian connections here. Anyway, so Brooke Adams, she was around quite a bit in the late 70s, early 80s in terms of work. Got stuff like Car Wash, but Shockwaves. You ever seen Shockwaves, Joel?
Oh, I own Shockwaves.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just recently saw Shockwaves for the first time. And so that was an early Brooke Adams role. We've got Days of Heaven,
The Dead Zone.
Yeah, The Dead Zone. Yeah, we got The Dead Zone, and her career kind of slowed down, I think, in the mid to late 80s. She probably did more television than anything else, appearing in TV movies and guesting on series television.
Yeah, and I believe she's married to Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub, Monk
himself. Yeah, like she's definitely also fairly representative of like leading ladies in this era, and I think she's really good in this. Like she's got like those very like big sensitive eyes. Like she's reminiscent of like Jessica Harper, or even maybe like a sweeter Margot Kidder.
Yeah, I think following along those lines, definitely, I can see that. But yeah, especially the Jessica Harper part of it. I think, and this was kind of like the prototypical casting, I think, in a lot of like late 70s, early 80s films.
Very much so, but it does pay off here because she's got to play a woman who like is clearly being written off by everyone but Donald Sutherland as hysterical, and she hits the right notes to like make the audience. But I mean, of course, we know this is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but you've got to have a certain level of a certain level of grounding to your performance to not seem ridiculous in a film like this, especially since the tone of this particular film is so somber, and she pulls it off well. And her charisma with like Donald Sutherland, their chemistry is just it
seems quite natural.
Yeah, it's so relaxed and so comfortable and intimate. It's just the kind of thing you don't get in a lot of films, just because it's hard to find that with any pair of actors. But they've got that like they've got that quasi-sexual tension mixed with like long-term platonic friendship chemistry. I mean, that seems like it was a fairly common thing in 70s films, aiming for that, but like, getting the right cast for that is really difficult, and they totally pull it off here.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with those points. Another cast member. Let's talk about Veronica Cartwright for a second, who plays Nancy. We'll touch on her. I guess we'll touch on her husband in a moment. But the thing I find with Veronica Cartwright is that every movie I've seen her in, all she does is pretty much scream and cry her eyes out. I mean, I've seen her in Alien, and gosh, what else? There was Alien. There was The Birds. She was young Kathy, a lot younger than she was in Hitchcock's The Birds, and it's like every movie she's in, I guess she was casted for her ability to scream and cry.
Yeah, I mean, she's always a really likable screen presence. She's got a lot of energy, but like, and here she's clearly playing like sort of a manic pixie dream girl type. Before that was sort of a recurring thing, although I guess it wasn't totally uncommon in like romantic comedies in the 60s and 70s either. But she's clearly playing like a very artsy, strange woman, and that's the right vibe. That's the right like vibe for her. She pulls that off well, but yeah, she's always there to be the less stable woman, like alongside. Like,
less stable. I mean,
she's the one who's there to be like the hysterical one, as opposed to like Brooke Adams or Sigourney Weaver. Like she's the one to remind the audiences that this leading lady is special. She's not a regular woman because it's a different era, and they had to do that.
Yeah, and spoiler alert: the movie ends with her screaming and crying.
Like, there's really no other way to end it.
But her character Nancy is married to Jack, who's played by Jeff Goldblum. And this is a very Jeff Goldblum-like performance.
He just comes on screen with so much like indignant energy and anger, and it's just fantastic. Like it's clearly like this is obviously a breakout role for him. He's just so strange and so weird, and yet like because the situation is so weird, like his reactions seem normal. Like even when he's reacting to something like the next character we'll talk about being a dick, like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen Jeff, you know what to expect with Jeff, but this is like young, hungry artist Jeff. Like he and Veronica are like, that weird artsy couple. They run like a spa that does mud baths. He's like, a struggling poet going to book book releases, book signings, and like complaining all the time. Yeah. So he's definitely playing a type, but it's a type that he just throws himself into.
Yeah, I thought he was very good here. I enjoyed his performance. And then, of course, the character that we just gave a hint at. He's going to book signings by authors that he doesn't even like. Yeah. We're talking the Dr. David Kibner, Leonard Nimoy. And of course,
what a loathsome character.
I know, and we've got Nimoy, of course. He's. I don't know if he ever did break past the stigma of being typecast as Spock, but he certainly gave it a shot here in Body Snatchers.
Well, and I always think this is playing off Spock because, like, this is if he was trying to break past Spock, like, being sort of the head of a conspiracy of emotionless aliens probably was not the way to do that. But he's great here because he's playing like, a sort of like Donahue type sensitive therapist, and he's just so smug and paternalistic, and you want to punch him in his like, weathered fake
You want to
empathetic face.
pull his turtleneck over his head.
Oh my god! And we'll get more into it a bit, but he seems to be basically, in my mind, playing like a cross between Donahue and L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, it is definitely a grating performance, but I think it was intended to be that way. You definitely, you definitely hate this character,
Like in a paranoia film, you sort of need someone to be representative of the authorities that are going to fail you, and that's what he's doing here. And it helps that he's, it's an interesting touch to have him be like good friends with Donald Sutherland, which is actually kind of interesting because Sutherland's character is kind of a take no shit guy. He's not, and it seems like Dr. Kibner, Nimoy's character, is a very sort of touchy-feely, peddling easy answers, psychiatrist, therapist. He's like the Dr. Phil of his day, or that kind of type, sensitive 70s guy.
Which is something I want to talk about. Sorry to interrupt you there, Joel.
No, it's all good. It does seem, one of the things that I think is going to come into play here a lot is not just anti-authority, but there's a strong post-woman's lib vibe to this, and one of the ongoing plot threads is who actually believes Brooke Adams. Clearly Donald Sutherland does, and it's not just because he's obviously in love with her. I think it's because he's willing to believe someone he's willing to believe someone's sincerity, whereas when we meet Leonard Nimoy, he's talking to a woman who's going through the same thing as Brooke Adams. Her husband has been replaced by a pod person. She doesn't know what's wrong, but she just knows it's not him. And he's sort of forcibly reconciling them with this smothering fake empathy. It reminds me of in a much older era, a father reuniting his daughter with her husband after her husband's cheated on her or something. And there's a lot of the home drama in this. A lot of the domestic drama is sort of obviously representative of common domestic situations. I mean, when Brooke's describing to Donald something's wrong with my boyfriend, he's not the same, and he's talking about ruling things out like cheating or if he's actually gay. It's a film very much about the social conversations about relationships and marriages happening at this point in time.
Right. And one of the things I wanted to touch on, of course, the setting. Of course, we're in late 70s San Francisco. Now, San Francisco has always, for the longest time, has been considered the apex point of, I guess you want to call it liberalism. When conservatives talk about liberalism and cities revolving around that, they point at San Francisco quite a bit. And so the characters in this movie, from pretty much all of them, you kind of get the sense that they are in the right place at the right time. There's these are actually, I think they're fleshed out so well that these are actually people you would believe that you would find in San Francisco in 1978. So I mean, I think that part of it was very well done.
Oh yeah, these are the people at cocktail parties complaining about Republicans, but not actually helping the poor.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, let's get into some of the some of the technical aspects of the story here. I thought the special effects, when it centers around the actual pod people, was pretty creepy. You've got the doppelgangers. especially the incomplete ones. You know, you got the one in the mud bath place that's supposed to be Jeff Goldblum. You know, it opens its eyes. It's very incomplete. Then later on, you find you find a bunch of them out in the garden. Donald Sutherland falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he's surrounded by like 3 or 4 pod people. And then the scene where you know, another spoiler alert, Brooke Adams' character gets assimilated, and her body becomes a shell, and it just like evaporates in Donald Sutherland's hands. I mean, that was a very cool scene. I thought the special effects were very well done.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate is that, you know, it seems like the special effects team on this didn't really get much of a chance to do this level of work elsewhere. Like, it's Russell Hesse, who, and this was the biggest thing he ever did. I mean, later he did, like, the Ice Pirates.
Yeah.
And, who was it? Adele Room, who did Amityville Horror, which was another huge film, but, yeah, hasn't really worked on. I mean, for the level of special effects here, I mean, they didn't get, like, a Rick Baker or someone, but they're, or a Rob Bottin or anything, but they're very strong special effects. You know, I think a lot of credit here has to be given not just to Kaufman, who does a lot of interesting directorial stuff, but, you know, Michael Chapman, the cinematographer, who was a camera operator on Jaws, who was nominated for an Oscar for cinematography on Raging Bull. I think he was probably nominated for multiple Oscars, but, you know, long-time cinematographer with a great career behind him. You know, so some amazing editing here. It was Douglas Stewart who worked with Philip Kaufman on a lot of different things, including The Right Stuff, which I think he won an Oscar for.
All right.
So you've got real talent here in the service of something that is always sort of on a knife edge in terms of how much the audience is going to be able to buy it.
Right. Yeah. And that's going to lead me into the appeal of this film, basically. Science, I don't know, we'll consider this as a science fiction horror film, and of course, when you think science fiction in the 70s, you think of, like, special effects driven films like Star Wars and Close Encounters, but this one, of course, was a little bit more low-key than that, with the horror element, the atmosphere, the tone, the atmosphere, the build-up for all of this was very, you know, typical of a strong horror film. You know, I think they did it right in terms of building everything up. I mean, the whole thing starts with, you know, a gelatinous-like thing falling from space onto Earth, and, you know, a little bud, you know, forming a little bud on a tree. And, of course,
that's one of my favorite things about this film, is that it sort of establishes like, I almost wish this film had gone with not even explaining what was going on. I almost feel like a less literal approach would have benefited the film based on this tone. But the opening of the film, like, the way it's shot in that sort of nature documentary way, like, if you've ever been in a high school science class, you've seen videos like this. It looks like you've got, like, this sort of slow, almost time-lapse style shooting of, you know, gelatinous creatures then coming to Earth, then budding and flowering, and it's just like using that to establish the sort of serious tone and the veracity of things, like using that form that everyone knows, especially at this point, because by now it's the late 70s and nature documentaries are a staple of television. Like, it's just such a... If you're going to explain exactly what the pod people are and where they come from, like, then this is the best possible way to do it.
Exactly. And then, of course, the paranoia horror aspect of it. Once the characters realize what's going on, and they're trying to, I guess, contact the outside world, so to speak. They keep getting the same robotic-like responses with every authority figure that they call. And so the conspiracy fixes in. We've got Donald Sutherland, he's following people to this dock, to this warehouse, where he sees this pod people factory. And basically the fix is in at this point. And who do you trust, your best friend is suddenly a pod person. So, I mean, basically, who can you trust in a setting such as this? And that's where the paranoia horror sets in, because and the rest of the film really is just running, and just running and more running. You're just running away from people. You're hiding and running, and eventually there's no little dark corners left to hide in.
Yeah, what's interesting about the structure here, and I don't think it always works, but one of the interesting choices they make is that by the time the characters know what's going on, it's already spiraled totally out of their control anyway.
Yeah.
Which gives it definitely a very sort of dour, nihilistic feel. I mean, but we know they're totally screwed as soon as like a half hour into the film, Donald Sutherland's like dry cleaner is telling him his wife has changed. Like it's beyond our main characters now. It's clearly everywhere. If like this poor little dry cleaner dude is like worried that his wife is a pod person. Like, the film establishes pretty early that there's no hope, which makes it occasionally it sort of loses. I felt like it was losing me a bit, even though it's really exceptionally well made. Like to go that route, it's fairly long. I mean, this is a straight up close to 2-hour film, which is usually not a typical length for really most genre pictures, especially one where you've already sort of established that things are definitively to shit, rather than that slow sort of, oh, this person's gone, now this person's gone. We basically, 45 minutes in, it's our little group of like 4 people against the world.
Yeah, and I really think, I really enjoy this film. I think it was like one of, it's pretty scary. One of the scariest features of this is when a so-called pod person finds someone who is not a pod person, how they alert everyone else. Well, they point at them and they open their mouth as wide as they can and let out this piercing screech. and it's kind of like, hey, someone's not conforming with us, let's get them.
Yeah, it's interesting to set that in San Francisco, because like San Francisco, like of course being the sort of liberal bastion of America, it's the before Portland it was the non-conformity capital of America.
Yeah.
So
there's some irony there for sure.
So clearly there is a sort of like Republican panic aspect. I almost feel like there's an element of this where, given the time period and the ages of everyone involved, it's almost like the concerns of this might be reaching. It almost feels like the concerns of a once like very progressive, very like independent boomer generation, like dealing with the fact that everyone was growing up and becoming corporate now.
Yeah.
I mean, the first person to get turned is a dentist who's also a very sort of classic masculine model. I mean, he's got his like lantern jaw and he's watching sports and doesn't give a shit about Brooke Adams and the weird plant she found. He just wants to make out. Like, he's a sort of classic like a handsome but emotionally unavailable husband type. So it really does feel like the concerns of like a neoliberal generation, like, oh my God, everyone's turning like Republican because they have money now.
Yeah, and yeah, you definitely get that vibe from this for sure, and that might be a little under the radar in terms of the theme of the film, but you can definitely see that.
Donald Sutherland even jokes when he's like talking about like rule things out with rule things out with, Dr. Jeffrey Howell, DDS. If he's, talk to my therapist friend. He can help you clarify things, rule things out. If he's gay, or if he's having an affair, or if he's turned Republican, like he actually says that. So I think that aspect is there. It does feel like this is almost like a generational change film. And also, not to read too much into things, even though that's pretty much all I do here, but there is an aspect where I feel like being set in San Francisco in this sort of like, and it's in the late 70s, and it's a very more gentrified, very stable San Francisco. There's a recurring figure of a bum with his dog playing banjo that Donald Sutherland is friendly to, and we'll get to the payoff for that in just a bit. But there's very few examples of sort of the burnouts of the counterculture. We're surrounded by professional people, and it almost makes me think of, this is the era where Scientology really flourished, and we have Spock himself playing a therapist, peddling these popular books that are changing people's lives. And suddenly these people are a cult. It really does feel like there's a level of Scientology metaphor here, because I can imagine if you've survived the 60s counterculture, you're a serious civil servant still trying to make the world work better, or you're a starving artist like Jeff Goldblum trying to make the world work better, because it's clear that he has a very defined sense of justice as well.
Yeah.
And suddenly, everyone you thought was normal was turning to this crazy cult that's obviously peddling
you could definitely still see that sense of that 60s idealism in these characters, and bringing it 10 years later into the 70s, it's still there. They're idealistic and about the way things should be, and they definitely see that everyone around them is not feeling the same, and it kind of it's almost like people are selling out, like you said earlier.
Just wait 2 years, Donald. You get Reagan. It's even worse.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, I all those points you're making there, I can see that.
It's a film that's very engaged with the social and political situation of the time, which is, I think, in a larger sense, a great way to do a remake. I don't think this film is entirely successful. I think it's a really well made film.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do a good remake, updating it to, of course, because you're updating the quintessential Red Scare film, updating it to be about sort of generational change and sort of the death of the boomer ideal counterculture part of the boomer era.
Yeah.
It's a film that is sort of a time capsule in that sense.
Definitely. And then you wanted to touch on the ending a little bit. We know that Donald Sutherland, he needs to hide from the pod people. He's running out of hiding spaces, so he hides under a pier. But eventually, Joel, he has to fall asleep. And so the next morning, basically he goes into work like nothing ever happened, and he sees Elizabeth there. She's completely oblivious to him, of course, and so he's just marching in step with everyone else. And you kind of get the sense at first that maybe he's just playing along. Maybe if he can just pretend to conform, maybe he can hide out amongst them, so to speak.
Because we've already established through Veronica Cartwright, through Nancy, that is doable.
Yeah. And so what happens is when he steps outside and he bumps into Nancy. And, of course, she steps out of her zone for a second to say, to greet him, to say hello. And how does he respond, Joel?
I'm still not good at the pod shriek.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right, so I'll send a pair of tweezers your way, man.
Thank you. But it's a pretty famous scene. I mean, I think everyone at this point is seeing a GIF or a picture of Donald Sutherland with the wide open mouth, because he has a sort of downturned mouth anyway, so it looks and he's got the huge porn stash in this, of course. So it looks specifically very impressive when he's doing it.
Yeah, definitely. One of the probably it's probably considered one of the more scarier scenes in a 70s film. I would give it that anyway. Definitely, because I'm sure the the original audience, when it first came out, when that part came across upon the screen, it probably freaked a lot of people out, I reckon.
Oh yeah, especially because you've got the tension of hoping for the best, and now clearly there's no hope here. It is a film that jerks you around like that sometimes. I mean, I will say that scene works exceptionally well, whereas the dog with a man's face thing, I don't think.
I probably could have done without that. I mean, more of a grotesque factor there that they wanted to throw in, I think.
Especially because, we've had grotesque scenes in this. I mean, Donald Sutherland smashing the face of his own clone body, which is not like a grotesque, the face caves in, everything, which is awesome. But the fact that it's coming after, he can't smash the fake body of Brooke Adams. That's a nice little touch. There's a lot of nice little touches that it's almost sort of a master class in improving the veracity of your crazy story if you really want to convince an audience. When they're looking at the Jeff Goldblum double that's being formed, and Jeff says it's got no fingerprints, that's a great touch. The fact that it's bleeding from the nose after because in the chaos after Veronica's found it, she accidentally bloodies his nose, freaking out, and copying him to that extent. I mean, there's a lot of great little touches that really increase how tactile this film is, how much you believe in it, which is what makes the dog with man face thing so. It's not the right film.
Yeah, it comes out of left field, out of nowhere. So I don't think it was right for this film either. But
no.
Personally, though, I love the film. I reviewed it on my blog, retromovienerd.com, and I actually gave it a 5-star review at the time that I saw it. That's just how I was feeling at the time that I watched it. And, I thought it was an excellent film. But let's take a look at some of the reaction to this film. Of course, the budget was about $3.5 million. It was a pretty good-looking $3.5 million. That was a kind of a decent budget back in the late 70s, and it pulled in about 8 times that, pulled in almost $25 million at the box office just in North America alone. So pretty popular at the box office back in the day. Some of the critical receptions to it. Pauline Kael from the New Yorker, she said it may be the best film of its kind ever made.
I mean, Pauline Kael was sort of at the tail end of her career and was increasingly weird at this point, but I mean, still, she's one of our all-time great film critics, and this was that's incredible praise.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's other consensus that states that Invasion of the Body Snatchers, in terms of remakes, is one of the better remakes of all time. Variety said that it validates the entire concept of remakes. This new version of Don Siegel's 1956 cult classic not only matches the original in horrific tone and effect, but exceeds it in both conception and execution. That was from Variety. And then Janet Maslin of the New York Times said, the creepiness that Kaufman generates is so crazily ubiquitous it becomes funny.
That's an interesting point, and I don't disagree, because the film is so dour at points that, I mean, the saving grace is that we believe in these characters because they're such fully realized personalities. But yeah, I mean, it's so thoroughly there's no slow build, really. It's pretty. I mean, one of the things I think they sort of added for length purposes that I think was a mistake was we get Brooke Adams describing following her boyfriend around, and that everyone's weird at this point. Everyone's staring at her. Like, we get that all in sort of her with her narration over it, and I feel like a nice, like, in the present moment sequence of her following her boyfriend, seeing him make all these weird, like, black market Watergate exchanges with people. Well, she notices, like, you know, she's accidentally bumping into people on the street who just glare. It just doesn't seem like a friendly city anymore. Whereas, you know, we've seen the opening where everything's pretty normal and placid. They're bum playing the banjo. Everyone's friendly. Like, just seeing that in time, I think would have been a great build. But everything gives the impression that it's already over, and that just, it does hurt the pace of it.
Yeah, and of course, the film, if we look at the more critical reception, and like you, this film is not without its criticism. Roger Ebert said that it was said to have something to do with Watergate and keeping tabs on those who are not like you. And he also called Pauline Kael's praise for the movie inexplicable.
And I don't think it's an inexplicable praise at all. I think it's almost easier to understand, like, what the film is, like, what social trends it's pointing at. It's a little easier to understand after the fact, unfortunately. Like, because you can obviously see where the Nixon years affected it, but it doesn't seem to be about Nixon specifically in the way I think a lot of critics of the time thought it was. I mean, obviously there's the anti-authority element, but I really think it's more about generational change than anything.
Yeah, and that seems to be about it. So I think, I don't know, Joe, do you have any, I think we're going to wrap up the Body Snatchers discussion here, so if you have any final thoughts you want to lay into it, go right ahead. This is your time, man. Anything that you haven't really touched on yet.
I think I've touched on most everything. I mean, it is definitely a film I'd recommend. I mean, especially, I would, even more than a casual viewer, recommend it to a prospective genre filmmaker, because there's a lot to be learned on how to make a serious genre picture from this movie. I mean, what's interesting, one of the other criticisms I saw was the Richard Schickel at Time called the screenplay laughably literal, which I found interesting, because I don't think that's inaccurate. Like I said, like, it is sort of a tonal clash where you've got this very, like, moody, dark tone 70s cinematography. You know, it's all beautifully and almost sensually shot. And then you've got a bunch of hysterical characters talking about, like, figuring out the pod people from space. It does feel like if you almost went with a less, like, expository approach, and that might just be because, it's based on a 50s B movie, and those are, like, heavy on exposition. It just feels like maybe the big solution to this film, and I do think it is a very good film, but the big solution to make it like a perfect genre picture is just, this time around, especially because you're working with a remake anyway, just don't explain it.
Right.
Just have weird imagery, and there's something plant-like about it, and so, because there's constant plant metaphors here, and it's pointing at science stuff, and we do have characters who are basically science professionals, even if they're not, like, typical lab workers. So it's understandable, but by the same token, it just feels like if you just don't say what the real cause is, you have a perfect film.
All right. I don't disagree with you. Like I said, personally, I love the movie. There are a few things to nitpick about it. A couple of, like, the dog with man face thing. Probably a little bit of the whole tonal aspect, but definitely in terms of sitting down and enjoying a film, this is definitely one that can actually breeze by. I don't really think it drags a whole lot, and maybe a few of the scenes of running and just constant running, maybe. But overall, yeah, this is something that you could say, hey, I mean, I got a good movie to watch. Let's put this on. And
oh yeah, definitely a strong film. And I wanted to point out real quick that this was one of the earlier Dolby Stereo films. Ben Burtt, who did the sound effects for Star Wars, was one of the sound effects guys on here. Mark Berger did the sound mixing. I mean, on a technical level, this is aside from Man Dog, this is, you know, at the absolute peak of what you could do with a film at like 1978.
Right. Yeah. Definitely one of technical achievement for sure. And I guess there is an argument for one of the better remakes of all time.
I would definitely agree. It's not a film that I could say is a perfect movie for me, and it's a film where occasionally, like, I felt like, partly because I'm just sort of sensitive to matters of pace and structure, and it felt a little bloated for me, or at least like not as tight or as well structured as it could have otherwise been. Yeah. But I think it's an excellent film. I mean, I wholeheartedly do recommend it.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Well, that ends the Invasion of the Body Snatchers discussion. We'll take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into another film of the horror variety from the 70s. We're going to talk about David Cronenberg's feature film debut, Shivers, from 1975. When we come back.
Out in the street, it's 6 a.m., another sleepless night. 3 cups of coffee, but I can't clear my head from what went down last night. I know we both have our own little ways, but somehow we keep it together. You hear me talk, but you don't hear what I say. I guess it don't even matter. New morning, new day. Won't you see things my way? New morning, can't you see what your love has done to me?
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics on Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes, and while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
If you think you're not afraid of the dark, if you think you have a strong stomach, if you feel nothing can shock you, if you say you don't scare easily, if you believe you've seen everything, then prepare yourself for a motion picture that takes you beyond fear, beyond your wildest nightmares, and brings you face to face with terror, beyond the power of priest or science to exercise. What are they? Raging demons from another world? Bloodthirsty creatures that must be killed, or incarnations of absolute evil? They possess men, women, and children, and drive them to acts of unbelievable horror. No one is safe from them. No power on earth can stop them. The only escape is death. This picture doesn't make you scream and squirm, you'd better see a psychiatrist. Quick.
David Cronenberg makes his feature film debut with Shivers, a film from 1975 about parasites running rampant through a high-rise apartment complex and turning the tenants into zombie-like, sex-crazed maniacs. Shivers, multiple known with various titles such as The Parasite Murders. That one's pretty dull and obvious. They Came From Within. That's a little better. And for you French Canadians out there, Frisson. Oh, fromage. It's a 1975 Canadian science fiction body horror film written and directed by David Cronenberg. This is, as we mentioned, his debut. And Cronenberg is pretty well known these days. I guess he gets credit for being like a principal originator of what is commonly known as the body horror or the visceral horror genre. The style of filmmaking explores people's fears of bodily transformation and infection. In his films, the psychological is typically intertwined with the physical. And there's a lot of that going on here. But look at Cronenberg's career here, Joel. We've got, post Shivers, of course. One that we probably need to get to down the road, Rabid from 1977. The Brood from 79. One of my personal favorites, Scanners from 1981. The all-time greatest head-exploding scene ever. I mean, you thought Chopping Mall had a good head-exploding scene. You ain't seen nothing in Scanners. Videodrome from 83 with James Woods. And, of course, The Dead Zone. So we got a little bit of a cross-section here. We mentioned Brooke Adams being in The Dead Zone at the beginning of the show, and here's David Cronenberg directing The Dead Zone. And of course, he probably his peak, in my opinion, was The Fly from 1986. And then you've got stuff like Dead Ringers, Naked Lunch, Crash. Don't get me started on Crash, Joe.
Now, we should, for our listeners, we should explain that we're talking about the car crash sexual fetish film and not the not the film about racism in L.A. He's sort of gone normal since. I mean, he had a big hit and a very acclaimed hit with A History of Violence in 2005, and followed it up with Eastern Promises, a Russian gangster film.
Yeah.
And God, how do you know what he's doing now?
Yeah, I think his last feature film was 2014, Maps to the Stars. And he did Cosmopolis before that. I think that had Robert Pattinson from Twilight. But he's kind of slowed the output down a little bit. But I think that he was at his peak really in the 80s for the most part. Because Scanners, Videodrome, The Dead Zone, The Fly, Boom Boom Boom. I mean, he had multiple, just some great films like back to back. So Cronenberg, of course, is Canada's own, and there's a little bit of controversy surrounding this film, which we'll get into. But let's break down the plot just a little bit. Basically, as we mentioned, there's a scientist. There's a high-rise apartment complex on an island in the middle of Montreal. There's a scientist he's conducting experiments with parasites for use in transplants. Get the whole science behind it a little bit. Basically the parasite was supposed to you might want to help me explain this a little bit, Joel, but did the parasite exactly what was the science behind that whole experiment?
I mean, it's pretty it's not like hard science fiction here. The idea is that they've come up with these doctors have come up with parasites that can replicate the functions of failed organs. So,
right.
Like if your kidney is failing, it could be replaced with a parasite that basically does the same thing, filters blood in the same way. So, I have no idea. It's just a plot convention, and I'm trying not to nitpick, but I'm just like, how do you keep that in stasis with the rest of your body? I mean, it's a fun idea. If this were it does become like a crazy wild film at the end, but if this were like a comic booky pulpy film, I would be totally on board with, oh yeah, parasite kidney, whatever. But a lot of early Cronenberg, half the film is people talking in offices.
Yeah. So what happens is the doctor, Dr. Emo Hobbs, we'll call him. He loses touch a little bit, and he believes that humanity is over rational and lost contact with its natural instincts. And so basically he gears the organism to develop into a combination of some sort of cross between an aphrodisiac and a venereal disease, which is a hell of a drug. And once implanted, it causes.
So I mean, no, you go on. I'm not sure I have words.
I guess once it's implanted, the idea is once it's implanted into a human body, it causes uncontrollable sexual desire. And there's your movie.
So basically, we'll get more into this when we recap the film, but it basically becomes Night of the Living Dead with rape and sex cannibalism.
Exactly.
Like I mentioned earlier, that when we were bringing up Don't Look Now, that Night of the Living Dead has hundreds and hundreds of films that were inspired by it, either structurally or literally with the Romero zombie. Here it's very much structurally. I mean, and this functionally is a zombie film. It's just a different kind of zombie, I guess. So it's basically it is Night of the Living Dead, basically.
It's Night of the Living Dead with massive raging boners.
I mean, yeah, one of the things that I think was actually pretty clever of Cronenberg is that he recognized that there is something weirdly sexual about the zombie idea, like the idea of being sort of enveloped by, this wall of humanity. Like, there are obviously, like, gang rape connotations there. Not to, boy, I really should put a trigger warning on this. I mean, we probably, let's be honest, most of our listeners are probably they're probably like white dudes in their 30s, so we're probably okay. But this conversation's not going to be comfortable for anyone, because it is straight up a film about mass orgies. That I mean, that kind of idea has long roots in human drama. I mean, it goes back. Not to get too highfalutin about Shivers, but it goes back to Greek drama, I forget the Greek tragedy, but there's tragedies about Dionysus, the god of wine, god of revelry and bacchanals, taking over communities, making women his followers, maenads, who become these wild, hedonistic, drunk, orgiastic, savages who are just having sex with everything that moves and tearing people apart that don't want to. I mean, it's basically this is the science version of Dionysus.
The part of the plot is, of course, the doctor has a teenage mistress that he implants the parasite into, and it caused her to be a little promiscuous and spread the dang thing around. And so he tries to he thinks he's caught it in time. He kills her, and then he kills himself. So we get the doctor out of the picture right away, so we don't have anyone to really explain things, but as the story goes on, one of the men that the mistress was having sex with, he starts to get sick, and basically a lot of the movie is this guy laying in bed with a parasite, kind of reminiscent of the alien, in the stomach thing, moving around. And so you get a few body horror scenes right there in terms of that. Then the special effects were done pretty good there in terms of that, how it looked. And basically, you know where the story's going. One guy gets infected, then multiple people. It starts to spread throughout the building, and before all the real chaos really kicks in.
And this is a film that sort of juts back and forth between subtle and over the top, because the scenes with one of our main parasite carriers, Nicholas, the scenes where even at the beginning he's just sort of checking the lumps in his stomach in the mirror, and there's a scene later on that might actually be my favorite and the strangest scene in the film, where he's laying in bed, is heavily shadowed, and he's talking to the parasites. He's kind of he's talking about how we're going to be good friends, and there's an orgasmic quality to his voice. Like, stomach's just, there's these bloated lumps. The whole thing is disgusting and weird, and he's a very striking actor facially. I've noticed this, but he's got a kind of face that Cronenberg likes. In that scene I was just talking about, heavily shadowed, he looks kind of like Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
He looks like maybe a bit like Am Driver, especially like a young Bob Dylan. He's got sort of a gaunt face, heavy Jewish features, but also very like full sensual lips, which is very much like Jeff Goldblum. It's a face that like Cronenberg seems to like in a lot of his male actors, and it's a nice contrast. Like we talked about, contrast between like masculine and more sensitive heroes in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like our main doctor here, who's our main hero, is a more traditional like blonde masculine type. It's almost cringeworthy when he's like, I'm punching you to knock you out because you got a parasite.
Yeah, there's none of that here. We've got I guess he's kind of like an intellectual hero, so to speak. Our doctor that was referred to as, the character's name is Roger St. Luc. But he's played by Paul Hampton. And what's interesting about Paul Hampton is that he was a songwriter. First and foremost, he wrote some stuff with Burt Bacharach in the '60s about people, and some of his songs have been recorded by people like Sammy Davis Jr., Bette Midler, Tom Jones, even Merle Haggard, Elvis, Johnny Cash. So I mean, this guy had a there's that word again, prolific songwriting career, and so I mean, he's not really the ideal leading man right out of the gate, just from casting him in your film. So it was kind of an interesting choice there on the part of Cronenberg and company.
It's definitely a film that feels very back and forth in what the intentions are, partly because it's Cronenberg's first film and he has a low budget, and he's got to make a straightforward sort of genre pick, but there's also elements where his voice is emerging. And I'm not a huge Cronenberg fan, but he does have a very distinctive voice. And so Paul Hampton is sort of representative of that, where he's like the intellectual hero. He's also like, more active hero. He succeeds pretty well in fights. He like is very like, two-fisted when he needs to be. He's sort of representative of the tension of what this film is like trying to do. And I should mention Paul Hampton. I just want to give a quick shout out for writing the theme to My Mother the Car.
The pinnacle of his career. Forget Shivers.
I think anyone would be proud to have worked on My Mother the Car. I would have been.
Oh boy. Yeah. So there's that. So
I've derailed everything.
Nah. Basically, so we've got the parasite getting around. We meet various tenants in the complex, including, you mentioned the character Nicholas. Of course, he's married to Janine, who's played by Susan Petrie, and she's all worried about him, but he doesn't seem too interested in having her comfort him or anything like that. He wants nothing to do with her. She has a friend that she goes to, and eventually they all succumb to the zombie parasite, and we talk about this kind of being like a zombie movie, and we want to say that it's a zombie movie, but minus the rotting carcasses and the biting, and add in a lot of naked flesh.
There is sort of a cannibal. We see scenes where we've got people eating sort of unidentified substances, and it might be food or it might be flesh. It's a little hard to tell. I mean, the mother and daughter trapped in an elevator. The guy we've seen, the guy with the
concierge or whatever he is.
Yeah. He's been attacked earlier, and he comes in and is eating something out of his hands. It's red and goopy, and it looks kind of but it's actually more disgusting because it's not clearly guts or blood. It looks like it could be like cherry pie or something.
Yeah, it's like a Black Forest cake or something.
Yeah, which may be one of the grossest things I've seen in a movie somehow.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we wanted to touch on here is that in this film, I mean, this rabid sexual appetite thing that runs throughout the apartment complexes does not shy away from children, and it doesn't shy away from old people either.
No, everyone's getting it on here. And that scene, the mother and the daughter are doomed, and we do get like the daughter has one of the parasite infected people there, which I'm sure, which is weird because there's, this is all sexual, but I'm sure that was a riff on Kyra Shan and Night of the Living Dead because it's one of the most famous images from that. Yeah. And we even get her with like blood around her mouth, like planning a kiss like on some guy, they like a group of them, all over. Well, so the film is playing with a lot of taboos, and I'm never quite sure what it's trying to say. Partly because it's still got to be an exploitation film that makes money, and partly because I'm not sure Cronenberg has set on what he's trying to say. But like, there is, aside from the mindless rape going on, there is an element of sexual exploitation, an undercurrent of that here. Dr. Hobbs, our
evil scientist, like his guinea pig was a former student. He was working. They say straight out he met her at girls' school when she was 12, where he was in his like office performing breast cancer exams on the girls. Like, she's 19 now, I think the film says, but she's still wearing a school uniform. Like, they're playing with a lot of sexual fetishes here. At one point we see a very quick scene of two children we've seen earlier like find one of these parasite worms and run away. Like, later we see them both on leashes. Like, this is a fetish film. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is that this is like right at the apex of what they term the golden age of porn, which has a weird sort of crossover with Cronenberg's early career here. Our female lead is Lynn Lowry, who appeared in some of those sort of high-budget porn chic films that were kind of the rage in the mid-'70s. Yeah. And his next film, Rabid, it starred Marilyn Chambers, who, of course, famous porn star, so much so that like even like a normal human being like me would know her, who was controversial at the time because she made her name as the Ivory Soap model. Oh yeah, right, okay.
And I forget what big film she starred in, but it had a tagline playing off the old Ivory soap thing, like 99 3/4% pure. Like, it was like saying like Marilyn Chambers is 99 3/4% impure. Like, because you don't really need much imagination when you have like naked woman. So this era of pornography, obviously it's going to cross over with independent film in general, but it's sort of uniquely weird to see it cross over with someone who's, at this point an Oscar-nominated filmmaker, I think. I'm pretty sure he was nominated for History of Violence, who has Criterion editions to his name.
Yeah. Definitely, with this being Cronenberg's feature, it's kind of like, there's some stigma to detach yourself from. It takes a few years. I mean, in his case, he had to come out with more reputable films along the way to really get that reputation. But, it was a little rough in the beginning for him.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things I find interesting, for as much as, this film was excoriated for being immoral on the taxpayer dollar, which, this was an era of, like, immorality panics anyway, but by God, you do that with taxpayer dollar. Like, this film heavily seems like, to me, sort of an anti-pornography screed. He's taking all these sort of fetishes. I mean, there's a straight up incest scene where, like, you know, our doctor hero is hiding in an apartment, and it turns around and it's older bearded guy with his teenage daughter who's trying to prostitute his daughter to him, and then starts like making out with his daughter, and she has a very sort of like, you know, heroin chic 70s porn look to her anyway.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing is playing off these weird fetishes, and it seems like I don't know if this was intentional, but to me it just seems like Cronenberg taking all these like weird pornographic imagery and twisting it to say, this is how I see it. This is how inherently violent and skewed and dysfunctional all of this is. And I don't know if that's really what he was thinking, because there's stuff in here that I would classify as more, well, I guess being anti-pornography is kind of conservative in nature, but there's a huge anti-pornography strand of feminism anyway, or at least some eras and classes of feminism.
You're right.
So, you know, it's not necessarily just a right-wing kind of thing, but there are some heavy gay panic scenes to this, which I think will probably lead us to one of the stars we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and talk about that then, Joe.
Well, one of the casting coups for this is she's not in terribly much of the film, but just enough to, you know, make an impact. Barbara Steele is here.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. From, of course, we talked about Bava's Black Sunday on a previous show, so and that was probably her breakthrough role. But yeah, go ahead and continue with that.
Well, Barbara Steele already, by the way, is kind of a weird mix for this, because a lot of the actors in this I would call very bland. I mean, Cronenberg, to me, has there's a lot of sterility in Cronenberg that I think is intentional, though I don't think it typically works for me. I made that joke earlier about his early stuff being half like people talking in offices. And that's very true here. And there's very little depth of field to Cronenberg's cinematography, especially in this. I mean, that partly might be excused by him being in interior locations, but it's amazing how many scenes here are two people standing in front of a wall or a doorway, and nothing adorns the wall whatsoever. It's just pure white. And again, might be intentional, but there's a weird sense where half of this film is sort of has a vision and half of it is kind of amateurish. And I don't know if that's just because he's sort of breaking conventions, but not in the right way. But I'm getting a little off track. The point, we've got Barbara Steele here as the neighbor that, the bored divorcee neighbor that Janine, Nicholas's wife, confides in. And, of course, it's playing off Barbara Steele's she's a weird fit because her looks are so striking and dramatic, and she's such a presence. And a lot of the other cast here is very sort of detached and clinical, to the point where it's actually kind of weird that, Nicholas's character, Alan Coleman as the actor, is detached and clinical purposely, and he's very good at it. But everyone else is aside from maybe Lynn or Lowry, is just sort of blandly wandering about, talking. So you've got Barbara Steele, and it's clearly we get a scene of her being invaded in the bathtub, which I'm sure inspired a similar scene in Slither.
Slither, yeah. Which is interesting, because when I mentioned to Mrs. Jordan that we were going to talk about Shivers, she thought I was talking about Slither.
Yeah, I mean, this film does have stuff that was clearly inspired, Slither being a major one, and Deadly Spawn.
Yeah.
Which, Deadly Spawn is the pure exploitation version of what Shivers is. Honestly, there are scenes in this, there are very good scenes and very bad. When Cronenberg is trying to do straight exploitation, most of the time it's very bad, and I would rather be watching Deadly Spawn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But, when it's seen, there's the bathtub invasion scene where, clearly this phallic tongue-like parasite worm is sexually invading Barbara Steele, and it's terrifying, but she's kind of orgasmic, and it's all weird, and that's fine because that's kind of what you'd expect in this movie. But what sells it for me later is, she was drinking wine in the tub because she's a bored divorcee, and
that's what they do.
That's what they do 24/7. They drink wine in a bubble bath.
That's right.
But after she's been invaded, she gets out of the tub. You get a close up of the floor. The wine glass is broken, and she just steps on the broken glass and doesn't flinch or anything.
Doesn't feel a thing. Yeah.
That's an awesome scene. Touches like that are what that's evidence of the talent that Cronenberg would eventually more fully realize. Or even scenes Janine, Nicholas's wife, she's helpless to do anything about this parasite. She comes home, she sees blood dripping from the toilet, off the side of it. She cleans it up while she's crying. I mean, that's I almost feel bad that moment is in this film because that's a totally different tone. And I'm not saying this is a bad film, but it's not the series. That's a scene that would be perfect in Invasion of the Body Snatchers that we just talked about.
Right, yeah. And that makes sense.
So the tone is kind of all over the place here. Barbara Steele, aside from being sort of a misfit here, is they are very much, when she's taken over, it is very straightforwardly playing off her European aristocrat roles and her lesbian tinged European horror, because she seduces Janine, and quite frankly it doesn't seem like she had to work that hard at it.
No. And so yeah, and I think in terms of the casting, of course Barbara Steele is probably the biggest name in this film. We mentioned Paul Hampton already. You mentioned Lynn Lowry, but I want to touch on Joe Silver real quick, since we talked about him before we came back on. Joe Silver, who plays, I guess he's the college professor buddy of Roger St. Luke, Rollo Linsky, and he's an American stage actor, television, film. He's done some radio. He's got a probably best known for his distinctive deep voice, once described as the lowest voice in show business, so low that when he speaks he unties your shoelaces.
His voice, he's got a great voice, and he's mostly here to be science guy. He has a long career behind him. Worked with Cronenberg a couple of times. He was in Rabid a couple of years later. A few years before this, he was nominated for a Tony for the stage show Lenny, where he was playing. I think that was a one-man show because he was playing 9 different roles. That was the one that would be adapted into the Dustin Hoffman movie about Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce. That's right.
So there are some really good professionals here doing work that is not really requiring the best of them. I'm not trying to be hypercritical about this. It's just he's basically there to be science guy and to tell you what the movie's about. He's there to be like the exposition. Cronenberg would get better at parceling out information in future films in this style, like Scanners or The Brood did it better, but he would never become really great at it, I don't think. Partly because his films are so high concept, or at least this era of his films.
Yeah, for me, Cronenberg, he gets. I compare him to David Lynch quite a bit. Yeah, because they both have this these tonal aspects that they try to work into all of their films, and in some ways they're a little bit similar. So especially when you're talking about a future Cronenberg film at this point, like Naked Lunch, something like that. So I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that's a solid comparison with Cronenberg.
Oh,
to David
I would agree. They're both like heavily visual. Yeah, I have problems with some of Cronenberg's visuals. Like I said, one of the things that bothers me.
Just like I have problems with some of Lynch's.
I would not disagree either. I think Lynch for me is a bit more consistent, but I also don't think he thinks out his films as well as Cronenberg does. But Cronenberg's detachment, like I said, there's a lot of shots of his that have like no depth of field. There's a very weird sterile sense to Cronenberg that just sort of turns me off. I mean, I'm much more into more naturalistic kind of filmmaking.
Right, yeah.
So which is obviously not the place to go for Lynch and Cronenberg or Kubrick or like the guys that like a lot of film bros love, like, because they tend to be at least like, if you really like talking about films, those are guys to talk about, but they're not, to me, they're just not, they're easy to talk about because there's so much visuals and there's so much ideas that like sometimes their films can be a unique experience, but I generally find them very dissatisfying in their own ways for the most part.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Shivers, like I said, there's ideas here. Like, I think the opening is fairly spectacular, where we've actually got a nice comparison to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like, grounding the story with a format, the science video here. He grounds you with the travel advertisement, where they're advertising this apartment this luxury apartment complex on an island, sort of cut off from people, which already establishes that we're sort of isolated here. And then, but the voice is like weirdly sort of, it's a male voice. It's weirdly sort of whispery and silky, like, it's trying to be ingratiating, but it's just sort of creepy, and there's music that is sort of minor key, and the whole thing is ominous, and it's a great opening.
Yeah, and then, of course, you go from the opening to the ending, where, pretty much, of course, spoiler alerts, Roger St. Luke is pretty much the only uninfected one left, Paul Hampton, trying to escape. And, of course, we get the scene at the end where he's at the apartment complex, the swimming pool. And it basically ends in one big, giant orgy inside a swimming pool.
Which, if you've ever been to prom, you're familiar with that scenario. But here's my problem. So, the swimming pool scene, all right, cool. He's like trying to escape this apartment complex. He goes to the swimming pool. There's a few women in there. It has sort of a siren kind of quality to it, even though it's very I mean, the lighting in this film is very harsh, so like no one looks attractive. So he manages to pry open the sliding glass door of the swimming pool area and go outside, but there's just like a wave of people right over the little hill outside, and he's screwed. Here's one big problem I had with that scene. Every one of that crowd is wearing clothes. At this point in the film, they should all be entirely naked. And I'm not saying this out of perversion.
I was just going to say, there was just a whole lot of teasing dry humping going on the whole time.
Yeah, what's up with that? No, seriously, at this point in the film, just logistically, they should all be naked. But more importantly, the potential for that visual being menaced by a giant crowd of totally nude people, the potential for that, it's cool that the women already in the pool are wearing clothes, because that's weird, and the weirdness wings. But if he's going over this hill and being surrounded by all this giant gang of people that are going to sexually invade him and turn him, they gotta be nude. Yeah. I mean, the threat of sexual invasion here, I mean, the casting of Paul Hampton is actually pretty clever, because he's he's not hyper masculine, but he's masculine enough. So he's like sort of a classic blonde, sort of Paul Newman-y kind of hero.
Yeah.
So, the threat of sexual menace on, like, a stable character like that is pretty intense, and partly because it's a man, and that doesn't happen in a lot of films. But there are moments that struck me as, like, overly playing on the gay panic vibe.
Yeah.
Two in particular, he's down in the basement, and he's investigating the garbage for one, and finds one of the parasites, but gets attacked by this bald guy who from behind looks like he's wearing prison dugs. When you see him from the front, like, his sort of denim shirt is, like, unbuttoned to the navel, and there's some, like, filigree on it. He basically looks like a gay stereotype.
Yeah.
And, the horror here is he's about to get raped by a gay man, which is, I can't tell how much Cronenberg is playing straight and how much he's investigating stuff like that, but it's a really loaded image, and, we get the payoff of Hampton beating him to death with a crowbar, which seems like it's meant to be taken straight, like, oh, thank God he survived. Yeah. Later on, when he's, like, sneak his way through the apartment, two guys in their underwear, one of whom has a big, giant mustache that he looks like, the gay version of Burt Reynolds that you'd see at Studio 54.
Yeah.
And, a very scrawny, very effete guy next to him, like chasing him down, like asking him if he wants to go to a party. And again, that's straight up like, the gays are coming to get me.
Yeah, I could see that interpretation, definitely. But you don't see too much made of that when you read commentaries on this film. But I mean, you can definitely make a case for it for sure.
I'd love to read more commentaries on this. I haven't really read much about it, but because the sexual imagery is so charged and loaded, and which is of course kind of weird for Cronenberg anyway, because he is very sterile in many ways, but he's like sort of disengagedly playing with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I'd really love to see what someone more well-versed in interpreting this stuff makes of all the stuff he's doing here, and I'm not sure it's as cohesive as I want it to be.
Yeah. And so I think in terms of my own opinion of the film, I won't elaborate too much, but I liked it for what it was. It's just I'm not going to pick too much about it. It wasn't Cronenberg's strongest outing. Of course, the feature, he still has his feature debut. He still has a long way to go at this point, but it was definitely a solid debut. There's a lot of good things in this movie, but there's also some stuff that you could nitpick about. But it's moderate entertainment. I wouldn't say I'd recommend it highly, but Cronenberg, this is definitely one that the Cronenberg bros will probably want to check out if they haven't done so already. Just because it's just his debut, and it's okay. It's an okay debut for a guy that would go on to bigger and better things. But looking at some of the other aspects of the film, of course, it had a modest budget of about $179,000. That was Canadian, which means it would probably cost about $5 American.
And I should say that, like, my aesthetic concerns about this film are sort of tempered by the fact that it costs so little. I mean, he's doing what he can with the budget he's got.
Yeah. This is it ended up being one of the more to that date in 1975. It was one of the more profitable Canadian-made films at that time. But of course, it was controversial because it was taxpayer-funded through the Canadian Film Development Corporation, the CFDC, later renamed Telefilm Canada. That's a publicly funded film financing program that the Canadian government has in place. And at the time, the Canadian Parliament debated its social and artistic value and effect upon society, mainly because of their objections to the sexual and violent content. It wasn't without controversy upon its release, and the Canadian government basically was in shock that all this taxpayer money went to funding something that was that they probably deemed a little sleazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was an era of moral panics, and they spent the people's money on this. And Cronenberg suffered a lot of that early in his career, so much so, like, I think the best anecdote about this film is that he got kicked out of his apartment for making it.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that report. Quite funny.
Now, the interesting thing is that one of the people who, although not like a huge cheerleader for this film, had a healthy respect for it, was Roger Ebert. It was when it was released, at least in America, it was on a double bill with the film Snuff, which is the fairly infamous fake snuff film.
Uh-huh.
And Ebert pointed out that a lot of the stuff this film does, although there are some harsh imagery, there's a lot of imagery that's very that's sort of hidden or oblique, and Ebert generally has, it feels disrespectful to call it a weak stomach, but he always was very sensitive to violent or gory content. So for him to give a film like this healthy respect is a pretty big vote of confidence. I mean, he clearly, obviously, history bore him out on this. He clearly saw something in Cronenberg, a nascent talent that Cronenberg did end up fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ebert became one of Cronenberg's stronger proponents with his later output. So definitely a star on the rise at the time was Cronenberg, and of course his next feature, Rabid, would begin that rise. That would see him peak in the 80s with The Fly. So definitely, like we were saying, that there's some good things here, but Cronenberg, his voice was yet to be, I guess, found at this point. So this is kind of like a mishmash of ideas that a lot of it doesn't really gel together.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting experience. I wouldn't say go out of your way for it, but if it ends up on Shudder or something, and you're curious about just about seeing a director develop. I mean, it's always interesting to me to see a director's first feature and especially when you have examples of what they become later. And it's also, it's got a weird pedigree to it. I mean, we produced and music supervision by Ivan Reitman, director.
Ivan Reitman.
Yeah, classic producer and director, the man who made Ghostbusters. So why did we never get Ghostbusters against the Shivers parasites?
That's a good question, and I think we should get a Ghostbusters Shivers crossover at some point.
Finally, the movie.
Do we get the female Ghostbusters cast or the male Ghostbusters cast?
It's funnier when it's the men. I'm not saying that because the female cast is inherently funnier. It's funnier it's kind of awkward if women are being chased by sexual parasites. It's funnier when Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd are being menaced by sexual parasites. But weird crossovers between this and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because Michael Chapman, our cinematographer for Invasion of the Body Snatchers, worked with Ivan Reitman quite a bit too, including on Kindergarten Cop.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so this is like a lot of weird cross references going on with this one.
I mean, let alone the Jeff Goldblum thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Joel, I guess what do you think? That wraps up our Shivers discussion.
Yeah,
I think we've hit the nail on the head with a lot of points we want to make on this.
Yeah, mild recommendation. It's interesting. The imagery's charged. think there's a lot of things that don't work, but, so I'm always interested in stuff that's kind of ragged and might not necessarily work, just because I like the spirit of, like, making something under those kinds of limitations.
Yeah. All right. Very good. And so with that said, I think now what we've done with this episode, Joel, episode 33, is we moved our new retro releases to the end of the show. And I think that's a good way to close things out by getting into some stuff that is freshly released on Blu-ray that we want to talk about.
Yeah, we may have to do that more in the future because I feel like for the people who care, they don't have to like skip over to find the start of the discussion.
Yeah, right. So I think we got a couple of hit on. I'm going to run down the list and then.
It's a big week.
Yeah, it is a big week. I'll run down the list real quick of everything that's coming out, and then we'll double back and hit on a couple of these real quick. Of course, one of the big ones, the Criterion Collection is coming out with a couple this coming week, which is release date February 13th. We've got a 4K restoration, a 2-disc set of The Silence of the Lambs from 1991, and they're also putting out a Night of the Living Dead restoration. Also, Kino Lorber coming out with V.I. Warshawski, and that's kind of an odd choice for Kino. And then Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend from 1985. The Warner Archive Collection is coming out with Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. We've got, from MVD Visual, we've got Special Collector's Edition of Black Eagle with Jean-Claude Van Damme, one of his, I guess, lesser-known films. Severin coming out with both a limited edition and a standard edition versions of the 1980 cannibal film Eaten Alive. Scream Factory with Night of the Seagulls from 1975. That's part of the Blind Dead collection. For those of you who are familiar with the Blind Dead movies from the 70s. Pop Cinema coming out with probably one of the better titles out there, Cries of Ecstasy, Blows of Death. Mondo Macabro with The Blood Spattered Bride. We get some Giallo releases as usual. The Blood Spattered Bride from Mondo Macabro. And Arrow with The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Let me ask you, Joe, you got anything you want to hit on with these sets?
Yeah, I wanted to add just a couple others too, because it is a huge week.
Yeah.
Just quick Scream Factory also has the collector's edition of Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell, which I've never seen, and it's probably about time for me to. And Magnolia Home Entertainment has Takashi Miike's recent manga adaptation, Blade of the Immortal, which I've heard nothing but good things about.
All right, okay.
I'm a big Miike fan, and him doing crazy samurai films is one of my favorite specific subgenres of film. Also, I believe this past week, because we did take a week off, just coming out, Paramount put out a new Blu-ray set of the first 8 Friday the 13th films.
Oh, yeah. Again.
Again. So, the metal tin one that they came out with a few years ago was like, $150, $200 on eBay now. So if you want a cheap option that fits on your shelf really easily, doesn't take up much space, and gives you a lot of Friday the 13th, boom, it's like less than $30. But obviously, the big releases are probably the 2 Criterion edition. And quick mention, I believe Shout Select, which is sort of their new sub-label for cult and genre films, is also doing the animated classic Plague Dogs, which I believe is scheduled to be out this week.
Okay.
so if you're a fan of Watership Down, which had a Criterion release, and you want more depression, Plague Dogs is where it's at. But yeah, the Criterion releases, I mean, I've been waiting for them to do Night of the Living Dead for ages, and especially that they did that 4K restoration that makes its way around theaters last year. And this is one I'll be getting as soon as possible because it's Night of the Living Dead, and there's a million versions out there because it's public domain.
Exactly. It's public domain, and there's a lot of really crappy quality versions out there as well because of that.
Yeah, there's just like a million copies out there from all labels because like anyone who wants to put out a box set of cheap and public domain horror films is going to toss like Night of the Living Dead on there along with House on Haunted Hill and a couple of the other big Carnival of Souls, the big like public domain ones.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of like bad quality Night of the Living Dead out there. So why not get the really good one because it's a film that deserves it. And Silence of the Lambs, I'm not a particular fan, but it's got a major place in film history, and it definitely deserves the Criterion release. I think they did a Laserdisc a long time back, but it's long overdue.
Yeah.
And another we mentioned Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 from Warner, and I know there's not too much information on this so far. I don't think it's going to have much in the way of special features, but it is the unrated cut that people have been waiting for.
This is definitely, I guess, especially if you're a horror genre collector, then this would be one that you want to pick up.
Yeah, it's definitely, I know, fairly long awaited by a lot of people. It's a pretty full week. I mean, if you're a fan of like Italian films, you've got options. I'm curious about. I mean, it's Spanish, not Italian, but I'm curious about Shouts or Screams release of Night of the Seagulls because, I love the weird atmosphere of the Blind Dead films.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious about Baby Secret of the Lost Legend, which was one of the lost like forgotten 80s kids films. I've seen the VHS around. I've always been curious because it's about saving adorable little dinosaurs, and it's like hitting me right in the childhood.
Yeah, if you're like a fan of the what's that series of dinosaur animated films, Land Before Time. But how the dinosaurs look in that film. This is kind of like a live action copy of that style of creature. In terms of,
it's sort of a lost style of kids films. Like every now and then they'll come out with a children's film that hits on that sort of 80s 90s like high spirited like tone with with environmental overtone. It's like Monster Trucks was like that, which by the way, totally underrated. Monster Trucks is awesome.
I actually didn't mind. I've seen Monster Trucks, and I actually didn't mind it. It's not great, but it's definitely a little. I'm going off track here, but it definitely, definitely something that you could watch as a family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mostly bring that up because Baby with its tiny little like Apatosaurus, like Brontosaurus, like reminds me of these sort of dinosaur sort of whale creatures in Monster Trucks.
Yeah.
So that kind of kids film is sort of a lost thing. So it's interesting to see a sample of that doesn't really get a lot of nostalgic attention the way that Labyrinth does, or Dark Crystal, which has a anniversary release out sometime fairly soon that we'll probably be talking about.
Yeah, and then I want to just touch base real quick because I mentioned it earlier, the Kino Lorber, and they do a good job of selecting their films and polishing them up. And for some reason, V.I. Warshawski just doesn't seem to be their kind of movie to pick up, but there it is.
Kino's range of titles is always fairly wide. I mean, it almost seems like any sort of their focus always fascinates me because they do cult stuff, but it almost seems like what they specialize in is mid-budget Hollywood stuff with actors you may know but have that has sort of gone by the wayside.
Yeah. And so it's definitely a curiosity pick, I think. I'm not a huge fan of the film, of course, because it's an all-time stinker. But but it's definitely one of those movies that have probably gotten lost in time, being brought back, and I always appreciate that, no matter the quality of the film.
And whatever the quality of the film, I mean, the cast is. I haven't actually seen it, but I've seen the cast list, and it's like, I can't really denigrate anything with Charles Durning and Stephen Root. Speaking of, to bring it full circle, Stephen Root, major supporting performance in Get Out.
Yeah, yeah, and so we've come full circle. Yep.
Jimmy James from News Radio himself is in Oscar-nominated Best Picture film. God bless him.
Yeah, and he's gone from RoboCop 3 to Get Out. I guess the only other thing to pick up on in the new releases, the new retro releases, of course, mentioned the special collector's edition of Black Eagle. I'm an action film buff, especially 80s stuff, and this is a film that kind of gets lost when you're talking about Van Damme's filmography. And who doesn't talk about Jean-Claude Van Damme's filmography? Someone's always talking about it. This is right around the time when Bloodsport and Kickboxer were starting to become ingrained in people's brains, and Black Eagle gets lost, and so that's probably definitely one that I would recommend for this coming week.
Well, and not only that, I haven't seen it yet. I'm curious about this one, but we should mention that JCVD is the villain. Our hero is Sho Kosugi of Cannon's Ninja films.
That's right. Sho Kosugi and Jean-Claude Van Damme in the same movie, baby. How can you go wrong?
I don't know what else you could possibly need.
It's like taking, it's like Revenge of the Ninja meets Bloodsport or something, And,
I have no idea how Cannon didn't make this.
Oh, they wanted to. When it was released, they were probably jealous. So I guess we've about covered the gamut of the new releases for this week. So definitely plenty to talk about for this coming week. And I guess that's our show, Joel. Unless you have any final thoughts that you want to get out there before we sign off.
Well, not too much before we sign off. Just letting our audience know that we'll be doing. I'm not sure we'll cover every Oscar film, but the ones that personally interest us, we'll be talking about related films in the upcoming weeks. I generally find it interesting to see where those genres have gone in 20, 30, 40 years. Seeing where one of the things we didn't mention that I could probably spend a whole show on is that we had today 2 paranoia and body horror films that were basically pure white. So Get Out being a body horror and paranoia film about race, about being a black man in America. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me that it took literally 40 years after the invasion of the Body Snatchers film to make.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, that's really why we decided to start to do this with some of the Oscar films. Where those genres have gone, I mean, we can talk more about this in future shows. We can, if anybody has any particular interest in our thoughts in the future on Get Out, specifically on The Shape of Water, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in coming weeks, probably Lady Bird, because I've been wanting to talk about coming of age films for a while.
Yeah.
Hollywood is at a point of transition in terms of what voices are getting prominence. I think this year's Oscar contenders do a surprisingly good job for the Oscars of displaying that. I hope that continues and this year isn't just a one-off to shut up the Me Too movement. I really hope this is an ongoing thing, but we'll see. It's a year full of different perspectives, and I think it helps to give some context to those perspectives.
Absolutely. We hope definitely that's a turning point in terms of film acceptance and getting the accolades that are deserved for getting your message out there. And that's what this year's Oscar Big Picture, the Best Picture nominees tend to be. There's like wide-ranging topics going on there, and so yeah, you can definitely see that trend happening.
Yeah, we've got genre pictures, we've got first-time directors, we've got directors of different races. We've got female directors. There's just a really wonderful diversity this year, better than it's traditionally been. I hope that continues. And it's not in a vacuum either, obviously. There's a lot of political motivation for it, but seeing diverse and young filmmakers take these old ideas, take these old structures, and make them their own, that's really exciting to me. So. Yeah. So going back and looking at these old films and how they may have inspired, like how Invasion of the Body Snatchers reflects on Get Out, that's really interesting to me, how that developed.
Absolutely, I agree. And with that said, that wraps up episode 33 of Go Home in a Box. We've done 33 of these dang things, and still going. And thank you for joining us. Until next time, remember, Nilbog is goblin spelled backwards.
Spoil the movie for me.
We'll see you next time.
Everybody's trying to tell me what is right for me. Yeah. I need a drink and a quick decision. Now it's up to me. What will be? She's gone. I better learn how to face it. She's gone. Pay the devil to replace her. She's gone. And she's gone. Oh, what went wrong? Get up in the morning, look in the mirror. I'm worn as a toothbrush hanging in the stand. Yeah. My face ain't looking any younger. Now I can see love taking her. She's gone. I better learn how to face it. She's gone. I pay the devil to replace her. She's gone. What went wrong? Think I'll spend eternity in the city. The carbon and monoxide drove my thoughts away. And pretty bodies help dissolve the memories. There can never be